Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Elisa Schmidt. They also call me Marie. And I'm an Access Service Associate here at Poets House. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this special lecture on Selma Meerbaum-Eisinger, a poet, translator, and librettist from Czernowitz, as we celebrate Carlie Hoffman's new translation book, Song of the Yellow Asters, World Poetry Books 2026, which brings Selma's poems from German into English. For those of you who may be new to the space, Poets House is a non-profit poetry library and literary center that is free and open to the public. We have one of the most comprehensive independent poetry collections available to the public. Our library includes over 100,000 volumes of poetry, and we host readings, workshops, and youth programs. So, in the first portion of the event, Carlie Hoffman will introduce Selma Meerbaum-Eisinger's life and work. And then we will welcome Yerra Sugarman and Hirsch to join Carlie and read and discuss Selma's poems, followed by a Q&A to close the evening. Copies of Song of the Yellow Asters will be available for purchase, and you are welcome to stay and mingle until closing time at 9 p.m. So now I'll briefly introduce tonight's participants. Carlie Hoffman is the author of 3 poetry collections, including When There Was Light, winner of the National Jewish Book Award. Her translation from German of Selma Meerbaum-Eisinger's Song of the Yellow Asters is out with World Poetry Books. Her translations of Rose Auslander are forthcoming. A 2025-26 Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture Fellow. Her honors include a '92 New York Discovery Boston Review Prize, a Poets and Writers Emmy Award, a New Jersey Council on the Arts Fellowship, and a NYSEA NYFA Fellowship. Her work appears in Poetry Magazine, the Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day, Los Angeles Review of Books, Jewish Currents, and elsewhere. She earned an MFA from Columbia University and a master's in literary translation from Queens College. Hoffman is the founder of Small Orange Journal Orange Editions and assistant director of the MFA program at the Jewish Theological Seminary, JTS. Edward Hirsch, a Chicago native and MacArthur Fellow, is a celebrated poet and tireless advocate for poetry. He has published 10 books of poetry, including The Living Fire, New and Selected Poems, Gabriel, a Poem, a book-length elegy for his son, and Stranger by Night. He has also published 8 books of prose, among them How to Read a Poem and Fall in Love with Poetry, a national bestseller, 100 Poems to Break Your Heart, and The Heart of American Poetry. His new book, a stand-up comedy and Skokie elegy, is the memoir My Childhood in Pieces. He has received numerous prizes, including the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Pablo Neruda Presidential Medal of Honor, and the National Jewish Book Award. He taught at Wayne State University and the University of Houston. Since 2003, he has been president of the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation. He lives in Brooklyn. Yerra Sugarman is the author of 3 volumes of poetry. Aunt Bird, published by 4-Way Books, which won the American Book Fest 2022 Best Book Award for General Poetry and was a finalist for the National Jewish Book Award, as well for the New England Poetry Club's Moton Book Prize. The Bag of Broken Glass, poems from which received a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, and Forms of Gone, winner of PEN American Center's Joyce Osterweil Award for Poetry. She holds an MFA in painting from Columbia University and a PhD in creative writing and literature from the University of Houston. The daughter of Holocaust survivors, she grew up in a community of survivors in Toronto and now lives in New York. She is currently a mentor in the low residency MFA program at Jewish Theological Seminary. She also serves as a board member for Yetzirah, a herd for Jewish poetry, and as a co-curator of Yetzirah's reading series, Jewish Book Award. So without anything further, I'll hand it over to Carlie Hoffman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much to Poets House, Maria Lisa for all of your coordinating and everyone here. And thank you so much to World Poetry Books, Matvey Yankelevich and James Loop. The book just came out yesterday, and it's really exciting to have this in the world. It's been a journey since around 2019. All right. In the early 20th century, there was an Eastern European city called Czernowitz, which was then part of Romania and is now part of Ukraine. You can everyone hear me? Okay. During this time, the empire welcomed diversity, and Czernowitz became known as Little Vienna. And this place flourished, linguistically and artistically. There were many languages being spoken, and Czernowitz quickly grew to be a major hub of intellectual, artistic, and literary culture. From this rich and diverse place, the young poet, Selma Meerbaum-Eisinger, along with her cousin, the renowned post-Holocaust German language poet Paul Celan, came of age. Selma Meerbaum-Eisinger was born on February 5th, 1924, in this multicultural, polyglot environment where German was tempered and enriched by the many other languages heard in the capital's thoroughfares, cafes, and classrooms. Romanian was the official language of Selma's schooling, but German was the language spoken at home and at her grandparents' house, where she and her cousin Paul Celan spent many Shabbos evenings singing and discussing German poetry. It was German that became the language of her poetic imagination. Selma, along with her literary friends, recited Rilke and Heine among beech trees in city parks, eagles floating overhead, lyrics rising toward the chalky clouds and into the summer air, fragrant with fir needles and ripening chestnuts. They lingered by the Prut River to debate Goethe, Freud, and Kafka, long before it became a major transit point for the deportation of Jews from the city's ghetto across the Dniester River to forced labor camps of Transnistria. The onset of World War II coincided with Selma's completing the 10th grade. So I just wanted to share a few photos. Yad Vashem has them in their archives, and they were kind enough to allow me to use them for the event. I'm going to pull this. So the one up here, all the way at the top, is Selma. You can see her. She's in the second row, second to last. These are her schoolmates from Czernowitz, and if you can look in the second row all the way, the first person in the second row, that's Lizer Fishman. They had like their boyfriend girlfriend thing or something, I don't know. And right above Selma's head, the young girl right above her, the third to the right of the top row, that's Elsa Schachter Karen, and she was one of Selma's best friends. In the photograph right below, you can see Elsa and Selma more clearly, just on a street in Czernowitz. And to the left here, that's Selma and her grandmother. In Selma's original hand-bound manuscript titled Blütenlese, which means anthology and literally translates to Harvest of Blossoms, she chose a floral cover design by the 19th century French realist painter Jean-Désiré Gustave Courbet, a friend of Paul Verlaine. She also included original sketches and pictures. She was a visual artist as well. She broke the collection into two parts, the flowering part 1 and the flowering part 2. And the collection is divided into 10 sections named after different flowers, such as red carnations and dark lilacs. Through her use of flowers, lilacs, asters, chrysanthemums, Selma rendered symbols of remembrance, farewell, and perennial beauty. At the close of each handwritten poem, she dated when it was written, though some are undated. But the sequence of the collection is not chronological. Rather than adhering to the temporal order, she created an arc of tension reflecting the horrors and upheavals of the era. Many of Selma's poems are intended to be set to music, and also in dialogue with the poets she read, admired, and translated. Translation was further illustration of her passion for language. 5 of her surviving poems are renderings into German, Verlaine from French and into Yiddish, Monger and Ledvik from Yiddish, and a Romanian piece attributed to Disciple Micnea. She writes in her poem Dried Leaf, an early poem in the collection, that the leaf is a song in a minor key, placing her close to Verlaine, as his line is singing as they go in the minor key. She translated his poem Autumn Song into Yiddish as well as German in this collection. She dedicates the book to her first love, Lizer Fishman. And the dedication reads, "To Lizer, with love and in remembrance and thankfulness for a lot of unforgettable beauty." So here from the archives are photographs of the original manuscript. So I'll start here. This is the first page in the manuscript. That's her handwriting. That's how Blutenlese. It's those, not bubble letters, but those letters that everybody draws in like high school or middle school when you're not paying attention. And she has the inscription to Lizer here, but it's blown up here, so you can, the words I just said, that's her original handwriting. And right above that is the corbeille, so that's the cover that she intended for her hand-bound manuscript. And I think these are amazing. Some of them are, you can see that these are her drawings that she did. They're really haunting and beautiful, of Czernowitz. She was obviously really inspired by the place where she grew up, really inspired by nature. And see, there's some photographs here too that she compiled in this manuscript. And then this is the last poem in the book. It's called Tragedy, and she's, I'll summarize what she was saying in the poem, that basically that it's very hard to give yourself away to another person and feel like you're not needed, and that like smoke you'll rise into nothing. And underneath that, if you can see, maybe it's hard to see for people in the back, but there's a red pen that she writes a note, and it says that she was sorry that they didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And that's the back of the collection, and that's just an example of one of the poems in the book. So you can see on the bottom, there's a date and page number. Okay. The poems composed in Czernowitz from May 1939 through December 1941 were written when she was between the ages of 15 and 17. Those dating from October 1941 were composed while she was imprisoned in the Jewish ghetto, where she drafted the poems in this collection, including the translations and librettos, into the original hand-bound, handwritten manuscript. In 1942, just 2 days before her deportation across the Dniester River, Selma entrusted her hand-bound manuscript to her best friend, Elsa, who we've seen a picture of, instructing her to deliver it to Lizer. According to Before Memories Fade, the memoir of Pearl Fishman, also from Czernowitz, whose husband Yuda Fishman was Lizer Fishman's cousin, Lizer did receive the manuscript, but he returned it to Elsa for safekeeping. In 1944, he boarded a clandestine ship to Palestine, taking only clothes with him. The ship was torpedoed in the Mediterranean, and there were no survivors. Leiser never learned of Selma's death. Elsa gave the manuscript to their other friend, Renee Abramovici Michaeli, who brought the manuscript on foot, hitchhiking, and across rivers to Israel. Had it not been for the determination and bravery of her friends and loved ones who survived the Shoah, the manuscript might well have been lost forever. In 1968, to ensure that her words did not vanish into obscurity, Paul Celan stipulated that his masterpiece, the poem Todesfuge, Death Fugue, that many of us here are familiar with, he said it could be published in a German anthology only if her poem, which is underneath your seats, I'm going to need you in a minute with that poem, so don't lose that piece of paper. He wanted that poem to appear alongside it. 8 years after that, Hirsch Siegel, Selma's former math teacher, together with a few of her surviving friends, privately produced the first edition in Israel. You can see the first edition is here. That is the first edition. A second edition published by the Diaspora Research Institute at Tel Aviv University appeared in 1979, so it was circulated more widely. And then the following years, the German poet Hilda Domin, who recently was translated two collected into English, like just a few years ago, she and the journalist Jürgen Serk were also instrumental in bringing her work to a broader readership in Germany. In 1980, Serk published her manuscript. It translates to I Am Wrapped in Longing, which is the title drawn from one of her lines in the poem Necklace of Tears. So that's these ones. There's two different editions. So one honored her original cover, the corbeille, and then the other one I think was, reissued with an introduction about Selma by Jürgen Serk. These efforts secured her posthumous recognition and highlighted Czernowitz's Jewish German language poetic lineage of poets erased from the once culturally vibrant place in which they once lived and wrote. Her friend Elsa describes the conditions under which Selma wrote. And this is Elsa. This is her speech. She says, "As the war approached closer to us, we felt that we would be robbed of our youth. We were no longer able to seek out our gardens and meadows. We had to find hiding places. On such long and lonely evenings, Selma wrote." So I would like it if we could all do this together. This poem is her poem of witness, is what it's called now, the term that she has in the collection. And it's important for many reasons, but also because it's how we know who she is, really. Because had Celan not done that, we might not have, learned about the book over time. So this is a draft, a page of the draft that she wrote of poem, and you have the full poem. And is there another mic? Thank you. So I would just ask if we could just remember her together through this very important, sad, but also beautiful poem. We'll start with you. It's just a stanza, and we'll go around. You can pass the mic back, and everybody reads a stanza.
Poem. The trees are doused in soft light. Each leaf glistens, trembles in the wind. Sky, silk blue and clear, like dewdrops shed from the morning wind. Caged firs in a hushed blush bow to their majesty, the wind. Behind the poplars, the moon squints at a smiling child who is already waving hello.
The underbrush is made miraculous by the wind, now silver, now bright green, and soon, like moonlight on golden hair, it is blooming.
I want to live. Look, life is so colorful. There are so many beautiful spheres. Lips wait, laugh, glow, express joy. Just look at the roads as it rises. so wide and bright as though waiting for me. And somewhere far away, restless and sobbing, the longing runs through you and me. The wind roars through the forest, calling, our life can sing. The air is tender, quiet and cold. The distant poplar waves and waves.
I want to live. I want to laugh and hear all my burdens. I want to fight now. I want to fight now, love, now hate. I want to hold the sky in my hands. I want to be free and breathe and scream. I do not want to die. No, no, life is red. Life is mine. Mine and yours, mine.
Why are the cannons roaring? Why must we die for glittering gold? Continue or pass it on? Shall I pass it on or continue?
Continue.
Here's the moon. Here. Close. Closer. I have to wait. For what? They die, the numbers pile up. Never rise again. Never and never. I want to live. Brother, you too. Breath steams from our mouths.
Life is colorful. You want to kill me. Why? The forest weeps 1,000 flutes. The moon glows silver and blue. The poplars are gray. The wind roars at me. The street is bright. Then they come and strangle me. Me and you, dead.
Life is red, roaring and laughing. Overnight, I am dead.
A shadow of one tree haunts the moon. You can hardly see. A tree. A tree. A life can cast shadows. Across the moon.
A life, bodies after bodies, they die, never rise again, never and never.
Thank you. And it's a hard poem to read and to hear, but I'm glad that we did that together. In the camp, Selma developed a friendship with visual artist Arnold Dagani, who, believing in her extraordinary gift as a poet, consulted her on his work. Dagani recorded one of their exchanges in his diary. He says, "To Selma, the works looked tame, as according to her, they did not show sufficient cruelty. While all I wanted to do was to depict life in the camp, have I achieved it? Heaven knows." Dagani bore witness to Selma's death from typhus in the Mikhailovka forced labor camp on December 12, 1942. In his diary, he recorded her final moments, sketching her body as it was wrapped and lowered from the barracks. Selma, toward evening, she took her last breath, he writes. His wife, Anishora Rabinovici, added, she was running a fever and began to sing. Her voice grew more and more feeble until it was all quiet. All was quiet then. The air is tender, quiet, and cold, and still our life can sing. Thank you. And this is the original sketch that Dagani drew. I think if you can see, so this is the sketch of the barracks, and in the middle, that sort of white image there is the image of Selma. So it's the last image we have of her. Was by Dagani. Okay, that concludes this portion, and we'll set up. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to talk about two poems by Selma and about the sensuality in her work and why that sensuality is important. So the two poems I'll talk about, they're ekphrastic works. One is a sort of contracted sonnet, a curtal sonnet titled Pencil Sketch, and another slightly longer poem is titled Hands. To me, both of these poems seem to have been influenced by Rainer Maria Rilke, whom Selma held dear, and specifically by his ekphrastic sonnet, Archaic Torso of Apollo, which was published in 1908. It is a landmark sonnet in which a headless, fragmented statue radiates intense life, and divine light, ultimately challenging the viewer to change their life. I'll also begin just by saying what was in my bio. I'm the daughter of Holocaust survivors, and I grew up in a community of survivors in Toronto. And during my childhood, I was immersed in a kind of, I'll call it a shtetl ethos. And a shtetl, you all know, is a small, predominantly Jewish, Yiddish-speaking market town in Eastern Europe. And that culture was destroyed by the Nazis. I was, for most of my life, much of my life, a visual artist, a painter. And for these reasons, Selma's poems have particular meaning to me. Selma herself, a Yiddish-speaking artist as well as a poet. As both, Selma, importantly, comes to us as a sensual, flesh and blood young woman. She is like us. And it's important to remember that these so-called victims of the Holocaust were like us, full of life, longing to live and dream, and full of desire. What's sensual about these poems, which I'll read to you, and why their sensuality is important, I think of Selma's two poems as work of defiant, soulful, and erotic modernism, defiant of any gendered or social role she might have been expected to play, by which she would have been objectified as a young woman. In the poems, the speaker is defiant of her tragic circumstances, which dehumanized Jews and prompted her to stress her sensual humanity. As ekphrastic pieces, they are inherently sensual because they engage the senses and act as a medium for passion. As Carlie noted in her translator's notes, the manuscript is a love letter to Lizer Fishman, the young man that Selma was in love with and to whom she dedicated the collection. So the first poem I'll read, it's called Pencil Sketch, and to me, it reflects on an artwork, but also it's likely that Selma is describing the very act of drawing. As she draws Lizer, her lyrics, sensual and erotic, directed as they are toward the one who thrilled her and also broke her heart, suggest that this relationship framed the passions of her verse. Selma describes Lizer with irony and affection in Pencil Sketch. I'll read it. Pencil Sketch. A fine strand of hair casts a shadow across the forehead. Above it, silky, soft, dark hair. The mouth, a defiant testament to proud coolness, accentuated by a delicate black fuzz. The light brown of the eyes is barely softened. The teeth seem to push forward, strong and white, just as stubbornly wild as the black brows. But when the eyes gaze into the distance, a touch of longing scratches with pride. Above, the forehead arches in a dome-like curve. The delicate nose upward continues the mood, The slender neck adds harmony. A little brown, a little pale, a fierce major key. Unlike Rilke's sonnet, Selma's focuses not on a headless torso, but on the handsomeness, fierceness, and sensuality of Lyser's head, her beloved. And he's depicted in many ways as Apollo, who was revered as a youthful, idealized, masculine figure representing logic, order, and civilization. Selma's poem is cut short, which can be seen as significant in the sense that, as Carlie had quoted her friend Elsa Schachter-Karen, as the war approached closer to us, we felt that we would be robbed of our youth. Could the shortened sonnet allude to youth shortened? The Holocaust shadows Selma's poetry, and no embrace of her work can be separated from the dark times in which it was written, yet the sonnet ends as if to insist on optimism despite all, on these lines. The slender neck adds a harmony, a little brown, a little pale, a fierce major key. A major key typically symbolizes positive emotions such as cheerfulness, joy, optimism, and brightness. Writing poetry was the most human of acts for Selma, an act of connection, and what could be more human for a teenage girl than connecting to the world through the bliss, delight, and torments of erotic desire. Despite the unimaginable suffering she endured, this young poet, through her vibrantly fresh writing, prevailed over evil, assembling a manuscript full of unforgettable, deeply felt imagistic poems. Selma miraculously affirmed her life. The second poem I'd like to talk about is called Hands. Are they Lyser's and Selma's, whose startled touch turns to love? To me, it's a phrastic poem because of the reference to sculpture, but also because hands make art. Hands also make love. Hands are sensual as they caress others and the world itself. Selma's poem, to me, is an erotic affirmation of the life of a young woman looking forward to living in the beautiful, natural, physical world around her with her beloveds. I'll read you the poem. Hands. Strong and elegant, as though chiseled from the whitest stone, onto which sun breathed life, and to which the most beautiful roses have lent their leaves. They speak through the slender play of fingers, with the hands that formed a bond with them. Tendons play like slender, naked wrestlers, and yet are caressing sound that brews sweet words for the lips that flee in fear. And the fingers gently, shyly draw over soft, silk, warm skin, are like people who, when faced by happiness, almost forget to reach out and grasp it, yet grasp it right before the moment faded. They don't want to leave the others quite so frightened and flutter frantically over them. And as they do, their startled touch turns to love. But suddenly, they cling to each other, and they only quiver quietly now and then, like a child who has finally stopped crying, only sometimes sobbing silently. But already it seems sun shines timidly from far away, already heralding a new bright day. And I'll end by quoting what her cousins wrote about her. They wrote, In the course of a life cut short, Selma reached out to the world with poetry, and her words grabbed life, even as the world around her was slipping into an arena of death. With startling honesty, she wrote about love and heartbreak, desire and loss, injustice and marred hope. We have her poetry that holds her personal desire and terrors of the mid-20th century in one intimate embrace. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Yerra. I'm going to read two poems where nature is the main theme, I guess I'll say. And they're two of my favorite poems about nature in the book. And like Yerra was saying, I was reading this to Yerra the other night, and I'm like, this reminds me of someone. And at the same time, we were like, oh, Rilke, of course. So I'll read these two to you. And I love the way she uses this repetition. I guess it's an aphra, though I don't know if "and" as a repetition is an aphra, but that's debatable. She uses interesting objects and the things that she sees, I think is really surprising. And it's called Spring. Spring. Sun and fragments of melted snow, and water drips from all the roofs, and a bare heel knocks, and streets shine in wet slickness. And behind high fences, the grass rises like a bewildered deer. Sky, and a mild, warm rain falling. Then a dog barks for no reason. A coat blows open. A thin dress hangs like a laugh. A little bit of wet snow held in the child's hand, whose eyes are the first clover waiting. Spring. Finally, the trees are completely bare, and each shrub a soft sound, the first message of new happiness. And tomorrow, the swallows return. I love that poem so much, just all the details, the heel knocking and the bewildered deer. I gather that she has a sense of humor. I don't know. Her nature poems in particular. I'll read you just one more where I feel it's a. I laugh when I think about this poem. And I'll tell you why in a minute. It's called Afternoon. Thin twigs like otherworldly veils emerge from slender birch trunks, and the silence ceremonial, as if shielding the sky from the rapture of birdsong. Muddy brown paths and a blossoming tree discovers this new world. Grass barely sprouts, all the firs regreen, and a papery yellow butterfly dares to rest on a sun-drenched bench. This does not suit the green fly at all. Isn't the sun only for me? The tips of the blackthorn whisper, no. And I just find that very funny. It makes me think of like a couple that's been together for a very, very long time, like sitting on the bench and having like, I don't know, kvetching about something. I don't know. But I just want to say, we'll move on to you, Ed. But I wanted to say that the way she brings nature in, especially in that poem, in that final stanza, it's like they're her companions. Like, the flies and the wind and the rain, like all of these elements of nature and the flora and fauna are her friends in a way. And I find that very beautiful. And I also just like more critically, I see this is another way she's interested in the tradition of fairy tales and Goethe and Lorelei and all of those myths that she read and clearly was just immersed in and ate them up and was emulating in these poems. Thank you. Go ahead, Ed. Thank you.
The audience forgot its manners. Incredible that these poems exist at all. It's just a kind of miracle that she wrote them. It's extraordinary that they survived, and really tremendous accomplishment by Carlie into bringing them into English for the first time. So really great congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I would not like to be remembered for the poems that I wrote when I was 16 and 17 years old. What is extraordinary to me about this young poet, or two things really, well many, but two that really strike me, is that one, they are very literary. They are completely in conversation with other poetry. She is not just writing diaries. She is in a kind of conversation and response with other poems. And the poems are in a kind of dialogue with this High German tradition. But like, just step back and think of the weirdness of translating Paul Verlaine into Yiddish. Like, French symbolist poetry in Yiddish. It's just like wild. It's like she's moving very fluently between three languages, and she's in conversation with French poetry and with German poetry in particular, just like Salon. And she didn't live long enough to feel the rage at German that he came to feel. She didn't live long enough to feel that she had to impede herself the way that he did. I mean, she's still in that mode of the high lyric, the way that Salon was when he started. As he survived and became the poet that we know, he became increasingly troubled by the language that enabled him to be a poet before at all. And so you have a unique case in the history of literature where someone is just completely impeded by his own gift for language. But what you see in Selma is she's not yet impeded. She's still striving for that high note, and she achieves it. And writing these poems, the other thing I want to say about them is that writing these poems under such grim circumstances with this impending doom, you feel, and you'll hear it in the poems that I'm going to read, is that she wants to be a poet of joy. She does not want to just be a poet of sorrow. She does not want to be a victim of history. You feel the vitality and energy and the exuberance of this young woman. And what she wants to articulate is the high lyric song of being alive. And all through reading Carlie's translation, I felt this struggle where she keeps getting pulled back, pulled down by the sense of what's happening to her and what's happening around her, and the sense of eerie fatality that starts to creep into her work. At the same time, her natural spirit is joy, and it comes through in the poems, and I feel it myself when I read them. So to me, that's just wildly moving and deeply exciting. You tell me. Song of joy. Snow-white ice lies heavy, preventing any movement. If the river is still, motionless, it desires to foam, wild with want. And the waves can't rush, cannot listen to winter. They sleep, curled up in deep sorrow, in evil, heavy winter slumber. The sun hangs tired in the gray air. The snow lies white and dreary. All is dead, tired and scentless, and a snowed-in tree weeps in pain. The shackled river strains. It hates the ice, rears up desperately, wildly, wants to foam up madly toward the blue, still much too fiery to be dead. One day, a magpie will be heard, and the sun will suddenly light up, and the snow will vanish, sheet by sheet, and the river tremble one last time, breaks the heavy white blanket of ice, send its flood, See with delight the rose hedge, though bare, foam and roar and laugh at the hunks of ice. Laughs and laughs, almost hysterical. Sing and flows, consumed by joy. The sun shines warm and well. Spring flowers burst into blossom all over the earth, and little buds begin on the hedges. The river overflows, washes the earth, joyously greets the familiar flock of sheep, which it believed it would never see again. February 11th, 1941. You feel the burden of winter, you feel the weight of winter, and then you feel the determination, the tremendous burst of joy coming forth. And the faith of the poet writing it. Song of the Yellow Asters. They look at me brightly through the rain, a brightness replacing the sun for me. My blazing yellow smile, rain's sorrow can't swallow. Laughing, they bow down into the green where their pure and fresh notes accompany me. I place my song at their feet because today brings me joy. Wonderful poet, wonderful spirit. Thanks, everybody. What? Thank you.
Do you want me to?
Oh, yeah. No, you can just open it up. Yeah.
I think we're gonna open it up to questions from the audience. Yes, Sandy has her hand up. Well, that mic is coming over.
Sorry. This was, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Illuminating that on this daily calendar I have, there was a Rilke quote.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I've just been thinking about hidden voices, basically, and that this is the time when these hidden voices are going to appear, and it's going to be quietly, and all the world is going, what do we do, what do we do? And they're the strength of these voices. So it's a legacy. That's one thing, because it coincides with what I've been working on. But the other thing is that Chantal Akerman's films, she makes a big deal about her grandmother's notebook, which has sketches, and the voice of this. I mean, her grandmother was a young girl. She never met her, of course, because she died in the camp. But it's become a part of Chantal's work in her films. And the sort of, you have to take this, the spirit that I hear in this, the voice of this young woman who said, I am woman, all this, and then take away all the sort of layers of assigned meaning, because Chantal's sister has developed the legacy of Chantal, and she uses this notebook, sketchbook and notebook, like an object that people can look at it in the museum. It's a travesty. Anyway, but in the films and the installations that Chantal does, the spirit of this dead woman who embraces life and tries to get out of the Orthodox community that she's in. She's a modern woman. That voice comes through if it does. It's a struggle, but, because of the reinterpretations. But the voice is so clear, and this is what I thank you for, is like conjuring up this for somebody I never heard of. And then the other thing is that Camille Claudel did hands for Rodin because he couldn't. So I always think of that when you were talking about that. So thank you for this illuminating presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question which might have a very quick yes or no answer, but I am burning to ask it, which is that, do you know if there's ever been an effort made to reproduce the book in its visual manifestation with the drawings and the handwriting? It just seems like it would be such a powerful sort of art book, but I know that those are not easy to produce. I just wonder if you know anything about that.
Thanks, James. That's a great question. I was thinking about that too when I was looking at going through the archives. There are about, I
think 4 or 5 editions in German by various publishers, and one of them has some of the drawings that she did reproduced with the poems. I mean, you can look it up online. It's in German, of course. But there isn't any edition that I know of. And I thought about this too. Like, what if someone's out here and would like to take that on? Like, please do, because they're beautiful drawings. But the what? Oh yeah. It also like she kind of reminds me of Dickinson, like the yeah.
So, Carlie, is there much scholarship in German academic circles on her work, given that Ceylon is sort of like a cottage industry, German academia?
Yeah, she's actually really big in those spaces. The poets of the Bukovina, the region where she and Ceylon and many others were from, there are a lot of exhibitions and things like that about her work. There are various like orchestras and musicians who have set her poems to music. It's out there. Google's not the place, it's like you have to, well, maybe you could Google it now, but you have to, go into sort of like those kinds of spaces, like institutions in Germany or different universities and things like that. But they're out there. And one of the ways that I came to her was through scholarship that was, some of it was like entirely in Romanian, and I was looking for something else, and I came across her. So there definitely is. It's definitely in like Romanian and German, and yeah. So if you are interested, you will find things, absolutely.
Yeah. And is it possible to read one of her poems in the original German so we can hear how she sounds?
You want me to read a poem? I mean, I guess, sure. Is that what everyone like to hear? Oh, sure. Okay. I want to read. No, I had to. That's what I. Addie. That's what I was thinking. But I have to use the table of contents. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. Just take it slow, though. This is the song of the Yellow Asters that read Ed in German. Den gelben Astern ein Lied. Sie blicken durch den Regenhell mich an, so licht, dass sie die Sonne mir erratzen, und gar nichts von des Regens Trauer kann. Die leuchtend gelbe Freunde mir verletzen. Erblachend neigen sie sich in dem Grün, das rein und frisch ihr Lachen mir begleitet. Ich leg ihnen mein Lied zu Flüssen hin, weil sie mir eine Freude heut bereitet. It's what he said.
Thank you. That was amazing. And I had never heard poetry in German like that. And so as someone who's descended also from German and Holocaust survivors, it's very moving to me to hear that. My question is, can you share a little bit about your journey when you discovered and decided to do this, and what it was like, the process, the archives, and how you got here, and also ways in which this journey has helped as a kind of resistance in this moment that we find ourselves.
Thank you, Deborah. So I'll tell this part of the story because it's a long story. But when I was writing my second book, I was dealing with archival material of my own family's immigration story. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and there
were various articles I was looking at, just trying to understand sort of the story of like how they came to New York. And so as I was doing that, I was thinking about like because I'm a poet, I understand things in poetry. Like I really don't. It's hard for like that's just the way it is for me. So I was like, well, I need to know what was it like for people living in this period of time before what is known as the Holocaust. The time leading up was really, I was interested in that, like the sort of anticipatory period. And so I was like, well, the poets, they know everything. I'll go to the poets. And I was like, well, okay, so there's Paul Celan and these other, I had this moment of like, but where are like the women? There must be women because there are women. But there was this moment of like kind of epiphany, sort of like, where are they? And also like, these are not people. Selma's not a German poet. She's a poet who lived in Eastern Europe in a time when this place, Czernowitz in particular, was producing Jewish poets who wrote in German because that was the highest literary you want to be in German. But they weren't going to get published. And anyway, I don't want to. I'm going off topic, sort of. But so that was where it started, and I came to her through scholarship, like you were asking. I was just trying to find what was going on in this place because it was really interesting to me. And so that was kind of one way that it started. And I came across her name in an article and in a list of names from an anthology that was supposed to be published, but then the German publishing house would not publish it because it was all Jewish poets. And I believe she was one of 2 women who would have been published in this anthology. And I loved her name, honestly, and I was like, who is this Selma? And that was kind of the question that I had for days. And then I found, I went in on it, and then I, started the research process there, and that was around 2019. And then I, started studying German and wanted to translate the poems to read them. And I didn't think I was going to, translate the whole thing and publish the book, but I was like really obsessed, and I love her work, and I just wanted to keep doing it. So thank you to World Poetry Books for believing in this. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I was, I think Ed expressed part of what I was feeling when I was listening to the poems, that how extraordinary it is that she was writing these poems at the age she was, with a degree of precocity. I could only think of Rimbaud as being comparable that way, that she was writing from 15 to 17, and that it's hard not to wonder what she would have written if she had lived into adulthood. And so I just wonder, on the evidence of the poems that we have written between ages 15 and 17, is there an arc? Is there a marked development in those 3 years? And I'm also curious, just to, was she writing mostly in free verse? What was her formal development?
That's a great question. So she is writing more formally. The poems have end rhymes. She writes sonnets. In the book, Yerra talked about that as well. And she was immersed in like all of these other the poets that we talked about. The ones that she translated were the Verlaine and Micnea and the other 3, Manger was another one. So she was emulating, like Verlaine, she emulates exactly like how he does his poems. In terms of development, I think it's interesting because like she dated everything and then put them in order in the book, which I think is really fascinating. Like she was thinking about arc and tension and all of that. So I guess what I'm saying is like reading it that way, because I actually, and I'm going to do this now, like reading the poems, like printing them out and reading them from like actually putting them in the chronological order would be like an interesting exercise to do, because when you order the manuscript, like you see a change and a growth, but it might, I can't say for sure because I haven't done the other way. But when Ed said that the poems, I think emotionally they change, and it's obviously when you practice and you are disciplined like she was, you're going to get better at what you're writing. At the same time, there was like this real fear, like her personal biography, like during these poems, like there was a moment where she was helping her friends. They were moving into the ghetto, and they had this music stand, and one of the soldiers literally took the music stand out of her hand and hit her like in the face, and she was bleeding, and it was like on her blouse. So like she was experiencing physical violence as well as witnessing this horror around her. So the poems change starkly. You do see they're imbued with this like impending doom as the manuscript goes along. At the same time, though, I really agree with what Ed said about just like in terms of like how by nature she seems like she's so hopeful and like so much joy and vibrancy. She loves colors. She loves nature. So if that answers your question, it's hard to say, and you'd have to read it both ways to really give like a serious answer to that. Ed or Yerra, did you want to add to that?
I mean, of course, it's impossible. It's impossible to say, but I think the main question, first of all, the growth is like Rimbaud, but the rebelliousness is not. That Rimbaud is just much more defiant and much more breaking with the traditions of French poetry, where she's trying to fulfill them. And I think that the question you would ask, I guess, about any future development would be, would she continue on this path to fulfill this high lyric? Or what I think, would it be interfered with? Because I think World War II made that path ultimately impossible. And so it seems to me that the lyric you just couldn't do the pure music of Heine, I think, ultimately. And so I think what would have been interesting and compelling is, where does she go with this high musical gift and this incredible eye for nature, as she would inevitably, I think, become more postmodern or focused on the rupturing of the lyric that seems to me that would have come inevitably. I mean, if you think of, say, the model or the alternative of Polish poetry, if you think of, say, the Scamander poets of the 1930s and how beautifully lyrical they were into the late 30s and early 40s, and then you think of the rupture that you get in Czesław Miłosz's Rescue and in Tadeusz Rozewicz's poems after the war, The Survivor, and you get the poetry that comes after. And I think the question is, where would this tremendous lyrical gift go on as it survived, if she had managed to survive the Holocaust?
Thank you.
There's another set of connections here that I find pretty exciting. I've been working on, I have for a number of years, the Journal of Helen Bayer. I don't know if people know who she is. She was a college student. I actually used to use it with my French college student, not the French Anne Frank, because she was 21 when she was taken. She died in Bergen-Belsen. But she had the same sort of optimism, and she was going to write a thesis on Shakespeare, but then she couldn't do it because of the anti-Jewish laws and everything. Her journal is all about the lyricism and embrace for life that suddenly turns into something else as she's, her situation's reduced. It's complicated anyway. The journal was found, and given to the library, and now it's translated into 30 languages. But aside from that, it's not the journal itself. It's the spirit of this young woman whose life was ruptured, but whose afterlife, in terms of our interpretation of it and the strength we get from her words and from the sort of inevitability of our generation's poetry being framed by the Holocaust experience, by the rupture, and the different interpretations. So she opens the journal when she goes to Paul Verlaine's apartment to pick up a book from him. And so I just think that's like so amazing, because she embraced poetry was part of her life, as was being a French student at the Sorbonne and all her group of friends and having a musical quartet and everything. Then everything gets reduced. It turns out, I think, that she was denounced. Part of the family left, and that's how they could save the journal. But Sacha Guitry, who was a big collaborationist, lived on the same street. And when I went to see the apartment, I saw and I'm pretty sure he's the one who said, that, because I know that their apartment was taken over and then left in shambles after the war. But the thing about Hélène Baird is she has an afterlife that was accidental, because an exhibit about what she did in the camp, made knitting needles out of sticks, and quoted lines like Charlotte Delbo from literature and things like that, and had people around her. She was a life force in the camp. She was beaten to death a week before the liberation. But anyway, the interest of the younger people in this one exhibit at the Musée Mémorial, in Paris, led to various exhibits and operas and all kinds of things about her, and constructions of the spirit of her. And I think that's what has happened with a lot of the poetry and the art and the sort of vibrancy of lives detoured. Because, in a global sense, it doesn't end with a single life, or even a life of a community, because Czernowitz is very, very complicated, I think, especially these days. But anyway, but the Verlaine connection is absolutely amazing. I mean, that's how she starts the book.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have another? I think we have another question.
It's interesting that Carlie's work has inspired you to talk about other Jews who perished in the Holocaust, other artists. It's really remarkable. I want to say how proud I am of you and your work, your singular work, and no matter what, you are a poet and you love poetry, and you praise and you raise other voices, and that's really remarkable. And the work is gorgeous. Your scholarship is incredible, and I'm really, really thankful to be here today, celebrating you and Selma.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's a good place to end.
Yeah, do you want to? I think thank you. That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us tonight, and thank you, Carlie and Ed and
Yerra. Yerra's a visual artist too, so it's really interesting to see your take on those poems. Yerra.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.